Jack, how could it be me? Monique whispers, her voice trembling as she stares at a gold-frame photo of herself as a 4-year-old, hanging in the private hallway of the Whitmore mansion. The 25-year-old part-time maid enters the lavish Chicago estate, guided by Jack, a kindly security guard, feeling like an outsider amid the marble floors and chandeliers. A photo of her in the blue dress her late mother, Amara, made leaves her stunned. Why is her childhood image in a billionaire's home? What hidden truths connect her to this world of wealth? Join us as we unravel this mystery. Subscribe to our channel to see the latest videos and leave a comment sharing where you are watching. Will Monique uncover her past? Follow along for a story full of twists and turns you won't believe. The neon lights of Chicago's South Side flickered like a heartbeat against the humid August night, inside the cramped, pulsing interior of Club Eclipse. The air thrummed with bass and the clink of glasses. Monique Johnson, 25, leaned against the bar, her worn sneakers sticking slightly to the floor. Her shift as a part-time cleaner had ended hours ago, but the ache in her bones lingered, a reminder of the endless hours scrubbing floors for people who barely glanced her way. Tonight, though, she'd let her friend Tasha drag her here, promising a break from the grind. "Live a little, Mon," Tasha had teased, tossing her a borrowed red dress that clung to Monique's frame. Now surrounded by laughter and strangers, Monique felt like a fish out of water, her dark eyes scanning the crowd for an escape. She sipped her soda, the ice clinking softly, and tried to ignore the weight of the day. Growing up in foster homes had taught her to keep her guard up, to trust sparingly. Her mother, Amara, had died when she was 4, leaving behind only fragments of memory, a warm laugh, a green dress, a lullaby. No father, no family, just a string of social workers in temporary beds. Monique had learned to survive, to carve out a life from the scraps. But survival wasn't living, and tonight she felt the difference acutely. Across the room, a man caught her eye, not because he was loud or flashy, but because he wasn't. He stood near the DJ booth, his broad shoulders relaxed, his white button-down shirt slightly rumpled. His pale skin stood out in the dim light, but it was his easy smile that held her attention. He was talking to a bartender, gesturing with a bottle of water, not beer. And when he laughed, it was genuine, not forced. Monique found herself staring, then quickly looked away, embarrassed. She wasn't here for that. She wasn't here for anyone. "Girl, you good?" Tasha's voice cut through the music as she slid onto the stool beside Monique, her braids swinging. "You look like you're plotting a heist," Monique smirked. "Just plotting how to get out of here without you noticing." Tasha laughed, loud and unapologetic. "Not a chance. Come on, let's dance." Before Monique could protest, Tasha grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the dance floor. The crowd parted and Monique stumbled slightly, her soda splashing. She steadied herself, only to bump into someone solid. A hand caught her elbow, gentle but firm. "Whoa, easy there," a deep voice said, laced with amusement. Monique looked up, and there he was, the man from the DJ booth. Up close, his hazel eyes sparkled with warmth, and his smile was even more disarming. He was older than her, maybe 30, with a faint scar above his eyebrow that only added to his rugged charm. "Sorry," Monique muttered, brushing a curl from her face. "Didn't see you." "No harm done." He released her arm but didn't step back. "You don't look like you're here to party." She raised an eyebrow. "That obvious?" He chuckled, a low, easy sound. "Let's just say you're the only one nursing a soda like it's fine wine." Monique couldn't help but smile, her guard softening. "And you're drinking water, so what's your excuse?" "On the clock, technically." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "I'm Jack Carter. I work security, but tonight's my night off. Well, mostly." "Monique," she said, surprised at how easily her name slipped out. "And I'm just here." Jack's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Just here, huh? Sounds like a story." "Not much of one," she said, glancing at Tasha, who was now dancing with a stranger and giving her a thumbs up. Monique rolled her eyes. "My friend thought I needed a night out." "She's not wrong," Jack said. "You look like you could use a break." "What do you do, Monique?" She hesitated. Telling people she was a cleaner often earned her pity or dismissal, but Jack's gaze was steady, curious, not judgmental. I clean offices, part-time. It's fine. Fine's a start, he said, unfazed. Tough gig, though. I've seen the crews at the places I work. Takes grit. She studied him, searching for mockery, but found none. And you? Security's not exactly glamorous. He shrugged. Pays the bills. I work at a big estate up north. Whitmore Mansion. Ever heard of it? Monique shook her head. The name meant nothing, but the way he said it, like it carried weight, piqued her interest. Sounds fancy. Fancy's one word for it. He grinned. It's owned by Preston Whitmore, some billionaire with more money than sense. The place is like a museum. They're always hiring cleaners, you know. Good pay, too. She tilted her head, skeptical. You recruiting me now? Maybe. His tone was playful, but his eyes were earnest. You seem like you can handle yourself. And I'd rather see someone like you there than the usual snobs they hire. Monique laughed, a real laugh, surprising herself. You don't even know me. I'm a good judge of character, he said, leaning against the bar. Plus, I'd get to see you again. Win-win. Her cheeks warmed and she looked away, pretending to adjust her dress. Flirting wasn't her thing. She didn't trust it. But Jack's easy confidence was hard to resist. Still, she wasn't naive. People didn't just offer jobs out of nowhere. What's the catch? She asked, crossing her arms. No catch, he said, raising his hands. Just a lead. I can put in a word with the hiring manager. You in? She chewed her lip, weighing her options. Her current job barely covered rent, and Tasha was always on her about taking risks. A gig at a mansion could mean better money, maybe a chance to breathe. And Jack, well, he didn't seem like trouble. Not yet. All right, she said finally, but if it's a scam, I'm coming for you. Jack laughed, pulling out his phone. Fair enough. Give me your number, and I'll text you the details. She hesitated, then typed her number into his phone, her fingers brushing his. A spark of something, curiosity maybe, flared in her chest. As she handed it back, their eyes locked, and for a moment, the club's noise faded. Monique, he said, pocketing his phone. Something tells me you're going to shake things up. She smirked, turning back to the bar. You have no idea. As Jack rejoined his friends, Monique watched him go, her mind racing. A new job, a new face, a new chance. It felt like the universe was nudging her toward something. She didn't believe in fate, not after the life she'd had. But tonight, in this sweaty, crowded club, she felt a flicker of possibility. Maybe Tasha was right. Maybe it was time to live a little. She didn't know it yet, but that chance encounter with Jack Carter was the first thread in a tapestry of secrets, one that would unravel her past and lead her to a truth so shocking it would change her life forever. For now, though, Monique finished her soda, the taste of hope lingering on her tongue, unaware that her next step would take her into the heart of a billionaire's world, and a mystery that had been buried for 20 years. The morning sun glinted off Lake Michigan, casting a golden sheen over the Whitmore Mansion's sprawling estate. Monique stood at the iron gates, her cleaning supplies slung over her shoulder, her heart thudding with a mix of nerves and anticipation. Jack had come through. His text 2 days ago confirmed her trial shift as a cleaner. Now clutching a temporary ID badge, she followed him through the gates, her sneakers crunching on the gravel path. The mansion loomed ahead, a fortress of white stone and arched windows, its opulence both breathtaking and intimidating. Stick with me, Jack said, his voice steady. Place is a maze, but you'll get the hang of it. Monique nodded, forcing a smile, but inside she felt like an imposter stepping into a world that wasn't hers. Inside, the air was cool, scented with polish and wealth. The foyer alone could swallow her apartment whole. Marble floors gleamed under a chandelier dripping with crystals, and oil paintings of stern-faced men lined the walls. Jack led her through a labyrinth of rooms, each more lavish than the last. A library with leather-bound books, a dining hall with a table for 20, a conservatory bursting with exotic plants. Monique's eyes darted everywhere, cataloging details, but her mind kept circling back to Jack's casual promise of better pay. She needed this job, needed the stability, But the grandeur made her feel small, like a speck in someone else's story. Cleaning crews this way, Jack said, guiding her down a service corridor. The walls here were plainer, the floor linoleum instead of marble, a reminder of her place. He introduced her to Clara, the head housekeeper, a wiry woman with pinched lips and a stare that could curdle milk. "You're the new girl?" Clara asked, her tone dripping with disdain as she eyed Monique's faded jeans. "Keep up. Don't touch what you're not told to, and stay out of the private wings, understand?" Monique nodded, biting back a retort. She'd dealt with Clara's before. People who saw her as less before she even opened her mouth. Jack gave her a reassuring wink before heading back to his post, leaving her with a bucket and a list of tasks. The morning passed in a blur of scrubbing bathrooms, windows, and baseboards. Clara hovered, barking corrections, but Monique kept her head down, her hands moving with the rhythm of someone who'd cleaned for survival. By noon, her arms ached, but she'd earned a short break. Clara dismissed her to the staff kitchen, where Monique grabbed a bottle of water and slipped out to explore, curiosity tugging her toward the mansion's heart. She wandered down a quiet hallway, its walls adorned with framed photographs, not the stiff portraits of the foyer, but candid shots, intimate and warm. A young couple on a beach, a child blowing out birthday candles, a woman with a radiant smile. Monique paused, drawn to the woman's face. Something about her eyes felt familiar, like a half-remembered dream. She shook it off, moving on, until her gaze snagged on a single photo at the hall's end, framed in ornate gold. Her breath caught. The girl in the photo was Monique at 4 years old, her curls wild, her smile shy, wearing the green dress her mother, Amara, had sewn by hand, the dress she'd worn until it frayed, the one she'd clung to in foster homes as her only link to her past. Her fingers trembled as she reached out, tracing the frame. The inscription below read, "Monique, my gift, 2004. Her chest tightened, memories flooding back. Amara's laugh, her warm hands, the lullaby she'd sung. But how was this photo here, in a billionaire's home? Her mother had died in a car accident, and Monique had been shuffled into foster care, her history lost to social workers' vague excuses. "Jack," she whispered, though he wasn't there, her voice barely audible. "How can this be me?" She stepped closer, her reflection merging with the glass. The photo was pristine, cherished, not a relic forgotten in a drawer. Someone had placed it here deliberately, like a shrine. Her pulse raced, fear, confusion, and a spark of something else. Something like hope. Who had kept this? Why? She glanced around, half expecting Clara to appear and scold her, but the hallway was silent, the mansion's grandeur suddenly oppressive. Footsteps echoed behind her. Monique spun, her heart leaping. It was Jack, his brow furrowed. "Monique, you okay? Clara's looking for you." She pointed at the photo, her voice shaky. "Jack, that's me. That's me when I was 4. How is this here?" Jack's eyes widened as he stepped closer, studying the image. "You sure? I mean, kids look alike sometimes." "It's me," she snapped, her voice sharper than intended. "My mom made that dress. I know it's me." He ran a hand through his hair, glancing down the hall as if expecting answers to materialize. Okay. This is weird. This wing is private, Preston's personal space. He doesn't let just anyone in here." "Preston?" Monique's stomach twisted. "The billionaire?" "Yeah." Jack's tone was cautious. "He's got a thing for old photos, keeps them like memories, but this, I don't know, Monique. Maybe it's a coincidence?" "It's not," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. She wanted to tear the frame from the wall, to demand answers. But something held her back. Fear of what those answers might be. Her whole life, she'd been told her parents were gone, her past a dead end. Now a piece of it stared back at her, framed in gold, in a place she didn't belong. "We gotta get you back," Jack said, touching her arm gently. "Clara's gonna have a fit if you're missing." Monique nodded, but her eyes lingered on the photo. As they walked away, she memorized every detail. The dress, the smile, the inscription. Her mind churned with questions. Had Amara known Preston? Was this photo a clue to her father, a man she'd never known? Or was it something darker, a secret buried in this mansion's walls. Back in the staff kitchen, Clara's glare met her like a slap. "Break's over, girl. Move it." Monique grabbed her mop, her hands steadying as she worked, but her thoughts were elsewhere. The photo had cracked open a door to her past, and she couldn't close it now. She didn't know who Preston Whitmore was to her, or why her face adorned his home, but she'd find out. For the first time in years, Monique felt a fire kindling inside her, not just to survive, but to uncover the truth, no matter what it cost. The Whitmore mansion buzzed with the quiet efficiency of wealth, its polished surfaces reflecting the morning light like a mirror of untouchable perfection. Monique Johnson, now 3 days into her trial as a cleaner, moved through the grand halls with a mop in hand, her muscles aching but her resolve unbroken. The photo of her 4-year-old self, framed in gold, haunted her thoughts, a riddle she couldn't solve. She hadn't returned to the private hallway since that first day. Clara's watchful eyes and the mansion's unspoken rules kept her in check. But the image burned in her mind, urging her to dig deeper. For now, though, survival meant keeping her head down, blending into the background of this opulent world. But blending in, she was learning, wasn't as easy as it sounded. Clara, the head housekeeper, seemed to have made Monique her personal project. Her sharp voice cut through the air like a whip, assigning Monique the grimiest tasks: scrubbing grout in the guest bathrooms, polishing endless silverware, cleaning windows in rooms no one used. "Faster, girl," Clara snapped as Monique wiped down a chandelier's crystal pendants, her arms trembling from the strain. "This isn't a charity. You're here to work." Monique bit her tongue, her foster home instincts kicking in. Stay quiet, stay invisible, stay safe. But Clara's disdain wasn't just about work. It was personal, laced with a venom Monique recognized too well, the kind reserved for someone who didn't belong. Her dark skin, her worn clothes, her very presence seemed to offend Clara's sense of order. The other staff, mostly white and seasoned, followed Clara's lead. During breaks in the cramped staff kitchen, they whispered behind their hands, their glances sliding over Monique like she was a stain on the mansion's pristine facade. "She's only here because Jack pulled strings," one maid, a wiry woman named Ellen, muttered to another, loud enough for Monique to hear. "Bet she's gone by next week." Monique sipped her water, her face a mask of indifference, but the words stung. She'd faced rejection her whole life, but here in this gilded cage, it felt sharper, more deliberate. Jack, at least, was a bright spot. He'd check in during her shifts, his easy smile a lifeline in the mansion's cold hierarchy. "You holding up?" he asked that morning, leaning against a doorway as she polished a banister. His security uniform was crisp, but his eyes were warm, searching her face for signs of strain. "Barely," Monique admitted, glancing around for Clara. "Your boss lady's got it out for me." Jack chuckled, but his expression sobered. "Clara's tough on everyone, but yeah, she's harder on you. Just keep doing your thing. You're tougher than she is." Monique smirked, but her thoughts drifted to the photo. She wanted to tell Jack about her suspicions, about the questions piling up, but fear held her back. What if it was nothing? What if it was everything? Before she could speak, Clara's voice barked from down the hall. "Carter, stop flirting and get back to your post." Jack rolled his eyes, gave Monique a quick nod, and disappeared, leaving her to face the rest of her shift alone. The trouble came just after lunch. Monique was assigned to clean the East Wing's drawing room, a cavernous space with velvet drapes and a grand piano that looked untouched. As she dusted a row of porcelain figurines, Clara stormed in, Ellen trailing behind like a loyal shadow. "What's this?" Clara demanded, holding up a silver candlestick Monique had polished that morning. A faint smudge marred its surface, barely visible. "You call this clean? Are you blind or just lazy?" Monique's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "I polished it, ma'am. Must have missed a spot." "Missed a spot?" Clara's laugh was sharp, cruel. "You're missing the whole point of being here. This is the Whitmore Estate, not some dive bar. We don't keep people who can't do the job." She tossed the candlestick onto a table, the clatter echoing. Ellen smirked, folding her arms. Monique's hands clenched around her rag, years of swallowed insults bubbling up. "I'm doing my best," she said, her voice low but firm. "If you want it redone, I'll redo it." Your best isn't good enough, Clara shot back, stepping closer. You don't belong here, girl. Everyone knows it. The words hit like a slap, and for a moment, Monique's vision blurred with rage. She opened her mouth to retort, but a new voice cut through the tension, deep and commanding. That's enough. All three women turned. Preston Whitmore stood in the doorway, his tailored suit impeccable, his gray eyes blazing with an intensity that silenced the room. At 40, he carried himself with the quiet authority of someone used to being obeyed. Monique had only seen him from a distance, a figure moving through the mansion like a king through his court. Now his presence filled the space, and she felt exposed, caught in a moment she hadn't chosen. "Mr. Whitmore," Clara stammered, her bravado evaporating. I heard what you were doing," Preston said, his tone icy. He stepped forward, his gaze flicking to Monique, then back to Clara. "You're the head housekeeper, not a tyrant. No one in my home is to be spoken to like that. Am I clear?" Clara's face flushed red. "Yes, sir. I was only ensuring standards." "Standards don't include humiliation," Preston interrupted. "You're dismissed, Clara. Pack your things. Ellen, you're on notice. One more incident, and you're out too." Ellen gasped, but Clara stood frozen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Monique's heart pounded. She hadn't expected this, hadn't asked for it. Preston's eyes met hers, and for a fleeting moment, she saw something in them, recognition maybe, or something deeper. It unnerved her, stirring the same unease she'd felt seeing her childhood photo. "Miss Johnson," Preston said, his voice softer now. "Are you all right?" Monique nodded, her throat tight. "Yes, sir. Thank you." He studied her, his expression unreadable, then nodded. "Carry on. If anyone troubles you again, you come to me." With that, he turned and left, his footsteps fading down the hall. Clara shot Monique a venomous glare before storming out, with Ellen scurrying behind. Alone, Monique leaned against the piano, her hands shaking. Preston's intervention had saved her, but it raised more questions than answers. Why had he stepped in? Why did his gaze linger on her like he knew her? The photo flashed in her mind, her 4-year-old self, smiling in a green dress. Was Preston connected to it? To her mother? The thought sent a shiver down her spine, equal parts fear and determination. As she resumed dusting, Monique felt a shift inside her. Clara's scorn had wounded her, but Preston's protection had sparked something new, a resolve to uncover the truth. This mansion held secrets, and she was no longer content to stay invisible. Whatever tied her to this place, to that photo, to Preston Whitmore, she would find it. And when she did, no one, not Clara, not the ghosts of her past, would make her feel small again. The Whitmore mansion exhaled a quiet grandeur as dusk settled over Chicago, its windows glowing like embers against the indigo sky. Inside, Preston Whitmore stood alone in his study, a glass of bourbon untouched in his hand. At 40, he was a man sculpted by discipline and loss, his sharp features softened only by the weight of memory. The confrontation in the drawing room earlier that day replayed in his mind. Monique Johnson, the young cleaner with defiant eyes facing Clara's venom. He'd acted on instinct, his anger flaring at the housekeeper's cruelty. But it was Monique's face that lingered, stirring a ghost he'd buried 20 years ago. She looked so much like Amara, his first love, that it felt like a wound reopening. Could it be a coincidence? Or was fate, cruel and cunning, playing a game with him? Preston set the glass down and crossed to a locked drawer in his mahogany desk. From it, he retrieved a small, worn photo album, its leather cover cracked with age. He opened it to a page marked by a faded ribbon, revealing a snapshot of Amara, her radiant smile, her dark curls framing a face full of fire. Beside her, a 4-year-old girl in a green dress clutched her hand, her eyes wide with wonder. Monique, his daughter, lost to him in the same tragedy that claimed Amara. The official report said a car accident, a fiery crash that left no survivors. He'd believed it, grieved it, built his life around the void it left. But seeing Monique Johnson today, her features echoing Amara's, her presence tugging at something primal in him, Preston felt the ground shift beneath his carefully constructed world. He'd met Amara in his 20s, a rebellious heir defying his family's expectations. She was a law student, a fierce activist fighting for marginalized communities, her passion a beacon he couldn't resist. Their love was electric, defying the Whitmore clan's disapproval of a black woman joining their lineage. When Monique was born, Preston vowed to protect them both, but pressure from his parents, threats of disinheritance, whispers of scandal, drove a wedge between them. Amara, proud and unyielding, demanded independence, and they separated, though his heart never left her. Then came the accident, or so he'd been told, orchestrated by forces he hadn't questioned in his grief. Now doubt gnawed at him. Was Monique Johnson his Monique? Preston's thoughts were interrupted by a knock. Jack Carter stood in the doorway, his security badge glinting under the study's warm light. "You wanted to see me, sir?" "Yes, Jack. Come in." Preston closed the album, his movements deliberate. He trusted Jack, reliable, discreet, a former Marine who'd proven his loyalty over the years at the estate. "I need you to keep an eye on Miss Johnson." Discreetly. "She's caught my attention." Jack raised an eyebrow, leaning against the doorframe. "Monique? She's tough, sir, but Clara's got the staff riled up against her. You sure you want me babysitting?" "It's not babysitting," Preston said, his tone firm but not unkind. "She may be in danger. I can't explain yet, but I need to know she's safe. Can you do that?" Jack nodded, his curiosity evident but unchecked. "Yes, sir. She's got grit, I'll give her that. Anything specific I should watch for?" "Just anything unusual. Report back to me directly." Preston hesitated, then added, "And Jack, don't tell her. She doesn't need to know." Jack gave a crisp nod and left, leaving Preston to his thoughts. He crossed to a window, the city skyline a distant constellation of lights. The resemblance wasn't just physical. Monique's quiet strength, her defiance in the face of Clara's scorn, mirrored Amara's spirit. But if she were his daughter, how had she survived? Who had hidden her from him? The questions churned, each one a spark threatening to ignite a fire he wasn't sure he could control. Meanwhile, Monique sat in the staff locker room, her shift over, her hands still tingling from the day's events. Preston's intervention had stunned her, his authority, his unexpected kindness. She'd caught his gaze, a flicker of something she couldn't place, and it unnerved her. Was it pity or something more? The photo in the private hallway loomed in her mind, a puzzle piece that didn't fit. She needed answers, but the mansion's rules, stay out of private areas, don't ask questions, felt like walls closing in. Jack appeared, his presence a welcome distraction. "Rough day, huh?" he said, tossing her a bottle of water from the fridge. "You could say that," Monique replied, catching it. She twisted the cap, her thoughts racing. "Why'd he do it, Jack? Whitmore? He didn't have to fire Clara." Jack shrugged, sitting across from her. "Preston's fair, but he doesn't mess around." Clara crossed a line. "You okay?" She nodded, but her eyes betrayed her unease. "He looked at me weird, like he knew me. It's freaking me out." Jack leaned forward, his voice low. "He's intense, but he's not a bad guy. Maybe he just saw you're worth more than Clara's nonsense." Monique wanted to tell him about the photo, to spill the chaos in her head, but trust was a luxury she rarely afforded. Instead, she forced a smile. "Maybe. Thanks for having my back." "Any time," Jack said, standing. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's another day." As he left, Monique pulled her phone from her locker, her fingers hovering over a search for Preston Whitmore. She hesitated, then typed it, scrolling through articles about his empire. Real estate, philanthropy, a polished life. But one old photo stopped her cold. Preston, younger, with a woman who could only be her mother, Amara, at a charity event. Her heart pounded. Was this real? Had Amara known him? The implications swirled, too big to grasp. Back in his study, Preston made a call, his voice low. "Dr. Ellis, it's Preston Whitmore. I need a favor. A DNA test, urgent, no questions asked. I'll send you a sample from one of my staff. Can you rush it?" The doctor agreed, and Preston hung up, his jaw tight. He needed proof, not just for himself, but to protect Monique from whatever shadows lurked in her past. If she were his daughter, someone had lied. Someone powerful enough to fake a death, to erase a child from existence. As night cloaked the mansion, Monique walked to the bus stop. The photo's inscription, Monique, my gift, 2004, etched in her mind. Preston's face, his voice, his unexplained protectiveness, all pointed to a truth she wasn't ready to face. But she wasn't the scared foster kid anymore. Whatever this mansion hid, whatever Preston knew, she'd uncover it. And if he was part of her past, he'd answer for it, one way or another. The Chicago skyline glittered beyond the Whitmore mansion's towering windows. But Monique Johnson's world had narrowed to the faint glow of her phone screen. It was late, her shift long over, and she sat cross-legged on her threadbare couch in her tiny apartment, scrolling through old news articles she'd found after searching for her mother, Amara. The grainy photo of Amara with Preston Whitmore at a 2001 charity gala burned in her mind. A young Preston, dashing in a tuxedo, his arm around her mother whose smile radiated defiance. The caption mentioned Amara's work as an activist, fighting for foster care reform, but nothing about a daughter. Monique's fingers trembled as she clicked link after link, each one a breadcrumb leading to a past she'd been told didn't exist. The photo in the mansion, her childhood self framed in gold, wasn't a coincidence. It was a key, and she was done waiting for answers to fall into her lap. Her discovery of the article had been 2 nights ago, after Preston's unexpected defense against Clara's cruelty. His protectiveness, the way his eyes lingered on her, had stirred a mix of hope and dread. Was he her father, a friend of her mother's, or something darker? The questions gnawed at her, but the mansion's rigid hierarchy, stay out of private areas, don't ask questions, meant she couldn't confront him directly. She needed evidence, and she needed help. Jack Carter, with his easy smile and quiet loyalty, was her best shot. He'd already proven he was on her side, checking in daily since Clara's dismissal. But could she trust him with this? Monique glanced at the clock, 10:37 p.m. She texted Jack, "Can you meet me? Need to talk." "Somewhere private." His reply came fast. "Diner on 47th, 11:15. "You good?" She typed back a quick "yeah" and grabbed her jacket, her heart racing. The diner was a safe bet, far from the mansion's prying eyes and her nosy neighbors. As she rode the bus through the city's neon-lit streets, the weight of her discovery pressed against her chest. She wasn't just chasing her past. She was unearthing a secret someone had buried. The diner smelled of coffee and grease, its red vinyl booths worn but welcoming. Jack was already there, nursing a milkshake, his security jacket slung over the seat. He waved her over, his hazel eyes scanning her face with concern. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," he said as she slid into the booth. "What's going on?" Monique took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly under the table. "I need your help, Jack, but you gotta promise to keep this between us. No one else. Not even Preston." Jack leaned forward, his easy demeanor replaced by a soldier's focus. "You've got my word. Talk to me." She pulled out her phone and showed him the article, the photo of Amara and Preston. "This is my mom. She died when I was 4. Car accident, they said. And that picture in the mansion? It's me, Jack. I'm sure of it. Preston's got my childhood photo in his private wing, and now I find this." He knew her. Maybe he's my dad. Jack's jaw tightened as he studied the screen. "Jesus, Monique. That's heavy. You sure it's not just a look-alike?" "It's her," she said firmly, "and the photo's got my name on it. Monique, my gift." "It's too specific. I need to know why it's there, why he's got it, what happened to my mom." Jack exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Okay, Preston's private, but he's not shady. If he's got your picture, there's a reason. But digging into this, it could get messy. You ready for that?" "I've been ready my whole life," Monique said, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her gut. "I just need a starting point." Jack nodded, his mind clearly racing. "There's someone you should meet. Lena Brooks, retired PI. She used to work cases in Chicago's underbelly, adoption scams, foster system fraud. If your mom were an activist, Lena might have known her. She owes me a favor." Monique's pulse quickened. "Can you set it up? Soon?" "Tomorrow," Jack promised. I'll call her tonight. But Monique, if this is big, you gotta be careful. People like Preston, they've got enemies, and secrets like this don't stay buried without help. She nodded, the warning sinking in. As they parted ways, Jack's hand brushed her shoulder, a silent reassurance. Back in her apartment, Monique couldn't sleep, her mind replaying every detail. The photo, Preston's gaze, the article. By dawn, she was ready. The next day after her shift, Jack drove her to a small coffee shop in Englewood. Lena Brooks waited in a corner booth, her silver hair pulled back, her eyes sharp despite her 60 years. She sized Monique up as they sat, her weathered hands cradling a mug. Jack says you're looking for answers about Amara Johnson, Lena said, her voice low. I knew her. Fierce woman. Too fierce for her own good. Monique's breath hitched. You knew my mom? What was she working on before she died? Lena's gaze darkened. Amara was digging into illegal adoption rings, private agencies selling kids to rich families, faking records to cover it up. She was close to exposing someone big. Elliot Vaughn, a real estate tycoon tied to Preston's circle. Then the accident happened. Too convenient, if you ask me. Elliot Vaughn, Monique repeated, her mind racing. What's he got to do with my mom? Lena slid a manila folder across the table. Old case notes. Amara gave me these a week before she died. They mentioned Vaughn's name, some insurance payouts, and a child, unnamed, tied to the crash. I couldn't prove anything then, but... She paused, studying Monique. You look just like her. If you're her kid and you're alive, someone lied. Big. Monique opened the folder, her hands trembling. Pages of handwritten notes, newspaper clippings, and a single document chilled her blood. A death certificate for Monique Johnson, dated the day of Amara's accident. This says I died, she whispered. But I didn't. Lena's eyes narrowed. Exactly. Someone faked it. Vaughn's name is all over Amara's notes. He had the means. Money, connections. If he profited from her death, or yours, that's motive. Jack, silent until now, leaned in. What's next, Lena? We can't just walk up to Vaughn and ask. Start with records, Lena said. Vaughn's old office is abandoned, but files might still be there. I'll give you the address. Be careful. His people don't play nice. That night, Monique lay awake, the death certificate's weight crushing her. Vaughn had erased her, profited from her supposed death. But why? And where did Preston fit? Was he complicit or another victim? The folder's contents, Amara's notes, her fight for justice, felt like a torch passed to Monique. She wasn't just a cleaner anymore. She was her mother's daughter, and she'd tear down Vaughn's lies, brick by brick, to find the truth. The Chicago wind howled through the abandoned warehouse district, carrying the scent of rust and forgotten industry. Monique Johnson crouched behind a crumbling wall, her breath shallow, her heart a drumbeat in her chest. Beside her, Jack Carter scanned the shadows, his flashlight cutting through the darkness of Elliot Vaughn's old office building. It was past midnight, the city asleep, but Monique's nerves were electric. Lena's folder, Amara's notes, the fake death certificate, burned in her backpack, proof that her life had been erased for profit. Tonight, they were here to find more. Records, files, anything to tie Vaughn to her mother's death and the adoption ring. But the deeper they dug, the more dangerous it felt, like they were pulling at threads that could unravel a viper's nest. Jack's hand grazed her arm, his voice a whisper. Stay close. This place gives me the creeps. Monique nodded, her eyes locked on the rusted door ahead. The lock was broken, just as Lena had said, but the silence inside was heavier than the wind outside. They slipped through, the air thick with dust and mildew. Shelves of moldy boxes loomed in the dim light, papers spilling like secrets long buried. Monique's flashlight swept over labels, financial records, client lists, insurance claims. Her pulse quickened. Somewhere in this chaos was the truth about her mother, her childhood, her stolen identity. They worked quickly, splitting up to cover more ground. Monique rifled through a filing cabinet, her fingers trembling as she scanned documents. Most were mundane, tax forms, leases, but then she found it, a folder marked A. Johnson, 2004, her mother's name. Inside were insurance payouts, transfer records, and a memo signed by Vaughn detailing a settlement for Amara's accident. The numbers were staggering, millions funneled through shell companies. Tucked at the back was a second death certificate, her own with a handwritten note. Child untraceable. Proceed as planned. Monique's blood ran cold. Vaughn hadn't just profited from Amara's death. He'd sold Monique's existence, betting she'd never resurface. Jack, she hissed, waving him over. He read the memo, his jaw tightening. This is it, Monique. He's dirty, but we need more, something to nail him. Before she could respond, a creak echoed from the hallway. Jack's hand shot up, silencing her. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, approached. He pulled her behind a stack of boxes, his body tense, ready to spring. A flashlight beam sliced through the room, and a gruff voice muttered, "Thought I heard something." A security guard, Vaughn's hired muscle. Monique's heart pounded as the beam swept inches from their hiding spot. Jack's hand squeezed hers, steadying her. The guard lingered, then cursed and moved on, his steps fading. "We gotta move," Jack whispered. They grabbed the folder and slipped out, adrenaline carrying them back to his truck. As they sped away, Monique clutched the documents, her mind racing. Vaughn's greed had destroyed her family, but these papers were a weapon. She just needed to wield it. Back at her apartment, Monique spread the evidence on her kitchen table, her hands shaking with rage and purpose. Jack paced, his phone buzzing with a text from Lena. DNA results came in. "Meet me at the coffee shop, noon." Monique froze. Preston had ordered a DNA test. She'd seen him talking to a lab tech after her shift, his expression guarded. If he suspected she was his daughter, everything was about to change. But first, she needed to face him, to understand his role in this nightmare. The next morning, Monique requested a meeting with Preston, her nerves frayed, but her resolve ironclad. Jack drove her to the mansion, his silence a quiet support. In Preston's study, the air was thick with tension. He stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the morning light, his gray eyes searching her face as she entered. "Miss Johnson," he said, his voice low. "You wanted to see me?" Monique took a deep breath, her hands clasped to hide their tremor. "Mr. Whitmore, I know about the photo in your hallway. It's me, when I was 4. And I know you knew my mother, Amara. I need the truth. Are you my father?" Preston's face paled, his composure cracking like thin ice. He sank into a chair, his hands gripping the armrests. "Monique," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've suspected since I saw you. You look so much like her. I had a DNA test done. It came back this morning. You're my daughter." The words hit like a tidal wave, stealing her breath. Tears stung her eyes, but she held them back, her voice steady. "Then why didn't you know I was alive? They told me my parents were dead. I grew up in foster homes alone. Why?" Preston's gaze dropped, shame etching his features. "I thought you died with Amara. The accident. I was told you were both gone. Amara and I loved each other, but my family didn't accept her. We separated, and I failed her." "Failed you?" "When I got the call about the crash, I broke down. I believed the lie because I couldn't face the truth." Monique's fists clenched, anger warring with grief. "Someone lied to you. To us. Elliot Vaughn. He faked my death. Profited from it. He killed my mom, didn't he?" Preston's eyes widened, a spark of fury igniting. "Vaughn. He was my business partner. But I never suspected. What proof do you have?" She handed him the folder, her voice trembling with conviction. Insurance payouts, fake certificates, memos. He orchestrated it all. Amara's death, my disappearance. He's running an adoption ring, selling kids for profit. My mom was on to him, and he silenced her. Preston scanned the documents, his face hardening with each page. "If this is true, he's a monster. I'll help you, Monique. Whatever it takes to bring him down. I owe you that. I owe Amara." Tears spilled down Monique's cheeks, but she wiped them away, her resolve unbroken. "I don't need your guilt. I need justice. Will you stand with me?" Preston stood, his hand reaching for hers, a father's gesture after 20 years of absence. "I will. You're my daughter, Monique. I've lost too much already. I won't lose you again." As they clasped hands, a fragile bond formed, forged in shared loss and a hunger for truth. Monique felt the weight of her mother's legacy, the fight Amara had died for. Vaughn's empire was built on lies, but Monique was no longer a ghost. With Preston's resources and Jack's loyalty, she had a chance to expose Vaughn to reclaim her identity. The confrontation was coming, and when it did, she'd face it as Amara's daughter, Preston's heir, and a woman who'd survived the unthinkable. The grand ballroom of the Palmer House Hilton shimmered under crystal chandeliers, its gilded walls echoing with the clink of champagne flutes and the murmur of Chicago's elite. Elliot Vaughn's annual charity gala, a glittering facade for his so-called philanthropy, was in full swing. Monique Johnson, dressed in a borrowed black uniform, moved through the crowd with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, her heart pounding beneath her calm exterior. To the guests, she was just another server, invisible in her role, but tonight she was a predator closing in on her prey. The folder of evidence, Amara's notes, the fake death certificate, the insurance memos, burned in her mind, a weapon honed by weeks of planning with Jack and Lena. Tonight, Vaughn's empire of lies would crumble, and Monique would be the one to swing the hammer. Jack stood near the stage, his security badge glinting, his eyes scanning the room. He'd slipped her into the event as a last-minute hire, his connections ensuring no one questioned her presence. Lena waited outside, her phone ready to leak the evidence to reporters if things went south. Preston Whitmore, Monique's newly confirmed father, was absent. His presence would tip Vaughn off, but he'd promised resources, lawyers, anything to back her play. The DNA test had sealed their bond, a fragile bridge over 20 years of loss, but Monique wasn't here for family tonight. She was here for justice, for her mother, for the child she'd been when Vaughn stole her life. The stage lights flared as Vaughn took the microphone, his silver hair and tailored tuxedo exuding charm. At 50, he was a master of deception, his smile disarming, his voice smooth as velvet. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight we celebrate hope. Hope for the children our foundation saves from poverty and despair." The crowd applauded, their adoration blind to the monster beneath. Monique's grip tightened on her tray, her pulse racing. She'd seen the truth in his abandoned office. Children sold through illegal adoptions, profits laundered through his charity, her mother's death orchestrated to silence her investigation. Vaughn's words were a mockery, each one fueling her resolve. She caught Jack's eye across the room. He nodded subtly, signaling the audio tech was ready. Lena had secured a recording, a damning conversation between Vaughn and his lawyer, intercepted by a contact from her PI days. In it, Vaughn admitted to handling Amara's accident and ensuring the kid vanished. It was the final piece, the one that would turn suspicion into conviction. Monique's plan was simple but bold. Interrupt Vaughn's speech, play the recording, and present the evidence to the crowd. The press was here, their cameras hungry for a scandal. If she timed it right, Vaughn wouldn't escape. As Vaughn droned on about second chances, Monique edged toward the stage, her tray a prop to blend in. Her heart thundered, but her hands were steady. She'd faced foster homes, rejection, Clara's scorn. This was just another fight, one she'd trained for her whole life. A stagehand, distracted by the crowd, left the microphone unattended. Monique seized her chance, slipping behind the curtain. She signaled Jack, who gave the tech the go-ahead. The speakers crackled and Vaughn's recorded voice filled the room, cold and calculating. "Amara was a problem. The crash fixed it. The kid's gone. No loose ends. Insurance paid out clean." The crowd gasped, heads turning in confusion. Vaughn froze, his smile faltering as his own words betrayed him. Monique stepped onto the stage, the microphone in her hand, her voice clear and unwavering. "Excuse me, Mr. Vaughn. I have a question." The room fell silent, all eyes on her. Vaughn's gaze narrowed, irritation masking his growing panic. "Who are you?" he snapped. "This is a private event." "I'm Monique Johnson," she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "The kid you thought was gone. My mother, Amara, was onto your adoption ring. You killed her to keep your secrets, faked my death and profited from it. But I'm here now, and I've got proof." The crowd erupted in murmurs, phones raised to record. Vaughn's face drained of color, but he forced a laugh. This is absurd. Security, remove her. Jack stepped forward, blocking the guards, his presence a silent threat. Monique held up the folder, her voice rising. Fake death certificates, insurance payouts, your memos, they're all here. You sold children for profit and used your charity to launder the money. And this? She pointed to the screen behind her, where Jack's tech displayed the damning documents. This is my mother's investigation, the one you killed her to stop. The recording looped, Vaughn's voice repeating his confession. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. Vaughn lunged for the microphone, but Monique stepped back, her eyes locked on his. You thought you buried me, she said, her voice low but fierce. But I'm Amara's daughter. You can't bury the truth. Vaughn's composure shattered, his hands trembling. Lies, he shouted. But the crowd was turning, their applause replaced by outrage. A woman in a sequined gown stood, her voice sharp. Is this true? Did you fake a child's death? Others joined in, their questions a rising tide. Vaughn backed away, his eyes darting for an exit. But Jack moved swiftly, blocking his path. You're not going anywhere, Jack said, his voice cold. Sirens wailed outside, growing louder. Lena had tipped off the police, and the evidence Monique emailed to the press minutes ago, scanned copies of the folder's contents, ensured Vaughn's crimes were public. Officers stormed the ballroom, their badges glinting under the chandeliers. Elliot Vaughn, the lead detective barked, you're under arrest for murder, fraud, and money laundering. Handcuffs clicked around Vaughn's wrists as he sputtered denials, his empire collapsing in real time. Monique stepped off the stage, her legs shaking but her head high. The crowd parted, some staring in awe, others whispering her name. Jack met her at the edge, his hand on her shoulder. You did it, he said, his voice thick with pride. You took him down. She nodded, tears burning her eyes, not from fear but from release. For my mom, she whispered. The weight of 20 years, abandonment, lies, invisibility, lifted, replaced by a fire she hadn't known she carried. Amara's fight was hers now, and she'd won the first battle. As the police led Vaughn away, his glare met Monique's, a flicker of fear in his eyes. She didn't flinch. The press swarmed, microphones thrust toward her, but she slipped through with Jack's help, the night air cool against her skin as they stepped outside. Lena waited by the car, a rare smile on her face. You're your mother's daughter, she said, handing Monique a USB drive with backups of the evidence. This is just the start. Monique clutched the drive, her mind already turning to the next steps. Vaughn's arrest was a victory, but the adoption ring, the children still trapped, demanded more. With Preston's support and Jack by her side, she'd keep fighting. For now, though, she let herself breathe, the city's pulse syncing with her own. She'd faced the truth, and it hadn't broken her. It had made her unstoppable. The Chicago dawn painted the Whitmore mansion in hues of amber and rose, its towering windows reflecting a city waking to a new reality. Inside, Monique Johnson stood in the grand foyer, her sneakers replaced by polished boots, her cleaner's uniform traded for a tailored blazer. The air felt different now, not oppressive, but alive with possibility. Elliot Vaughn's arrest at the gala 3 weeks ago had sent shockwaves through the elite, his empire of lies crumbling under the weight of Monique's evidence. The fake death certificate, the insurance payouts, the adoption ring, all exposed in headlines that branded her a hero. Yet as she faced the man who'd confirmed her identity as his daughter, Monique felt less like a victor and more like a woman piecing together a life stolen from her. Preston Whitmore descended the spiral staircase, his face softened by a mix of pride and regret. The DNA test had erased any doubt. Monique was his daughter, the child he'd mourned for 20 years. Their confrontation in his study had been raw, a collision of grief and truth, but it had forged a bond neither could deny. Now he stopped before her, his gray eyes searching hers. Monique, he said, his voice thick, I've waited 2 decades for this moment. Welcome home. She swallowed hard, the word home foreign yet achingly familiar. I'm not sure what that means yet, she admitted, her voice steady but vulnerable. But I'm here. For Mom. For us. Preston's hand trembled as he reached for hers, his grip warm and firm. I failed you once, I won't again. His words carried a vow, and for the first time, Monique saw not the billionaire, but the father who'd lost everything, until now. They embraced, a tentative reunion, the years of separation melting in the warmth of their shared loss. Tears stung her eyes, not for the past, but for the future they might build. The fallout from Vaughn's arrest was seismic. His assets, millions in offshore accounts, properties, and investments, were frozen by the FBI, who'd launched a full investigation into his adoption ring. Preston, leveraging his influence, redirected the confiscated funds to a new cause, the Amara Foundation, named for Monique's mother. Its mission was clear: rescue and support the children Vaughn's network had exploited, reunite families, and reform the foster system Amara had fought for. Monique, at Preston's insistence, took a leading role, her days now split between strategy meetings and site visits to new shelters. The work was grueling, but it felt like a torch passed from her mother, a legacy she was determined to honor. Jack Carter remained her anchor. His quiet strength had carried her through the gala's chaos, and now as the foundation took shape, he was never far. They'd grown close, their bond deepening in stolen moments, coffee runs, late-night talks, his hand brushing hers in reassurance. One evening, as they sorted files in the foundation's temporary office, Jack set down a stack of papers and looked at her, his hazel eyes intense. "Monique, I'm not good with words, but you're incredible. And I'm not going anywhere, if you'll have me." Her heart skipped, a smile breaking through her fatigue. "You're stuck with me, Jack," she said, her voice light but her eyes serious. He grinned, pulling her into a kiss that felt like a promise, sealing their partnership in this fight and beyond. Monique had spent her life guarding her heart, but with Jack, she let the walls fall, trusting in something she'd never dared to believe in: love. The foundation's first major project was a shelter in Englewood, a brick building transformed into a haven for 20 children rescued from Vaughn's network. Monique walked its halls, her boots echoing on new floors, as social workers settled the kids into colorful rooms. A girl no older than 10 clutched a stuffed bear and whispered, "Is this really my bed?" Monique knelt, her voice soft. "It's yours, you're safe now." The girl's shy smile mirrored the one in Monique's childhood photo, a reminder of why she fought. By week's end, the shelter had reunited 3 families, each tearful embrace fueling Monique's resolve. Publicly, Monique's story exploded. News outlets dubbed her the daughter who returned, her face gracing magazine covers from Time to Ebony. She shied from the spotlight, but Preston coached her through interviews, his pride evident as she spoke of Amara's activism in the foundation's goals. "My mother died fighting for these kids," she told CNN, her voice unwavering. "I'm finishing what she started." The attention brought donations, millions pouring in, dwarfing Vaughn's fraudulent charity. Every dollar went to the kids, a stark contrast to Vaughn's greed. Vaughn, meanwhile, languished in a cell, his trial looming. His former allies distanced themselves, his reputation shredded by leaks of his recorded confession. Monique's evidence, documents, memos, the recording, had sealed his fate, with charges of murder, fraud, and trafficking piling up. She refused to attend his hearings, unwilling to give him the satisfaction of her presence. But Lena kept her updated. "He's done," Lena said over coffee, her eyes gleaming. "You cut the head off the snake, kid." The mansion, once a place of intimidation, became Monique's sanctuary. She moved into a guest suite at Preston's urging, its soft linens and lake views, a world away from her old apartment. Late one night, as she sifted through Amara's old journals, recovered from Lena's contacts, she found a letter tucked inside, addressed to "My Monique." Amara's words, written before her death, poured out love and hope. "You are my light, my fight. Whatever happens, know I'm with you." Monique sobbed, clutching the paper, feeling her mother's presence. The letter was a lifeline, proof that Amara had never abandoned her. Preston joined her, sensing her need. They sat in silence, the journal between them, until he spoke. "She was fearless, your mother. I loved her more than I knew how to show. Losing you both, it broke me. But you, Monique, you're our miracle." She looked at him, her voice soft but firm. I'm not here to fix your past, Preston, but I'm here to build something new. For her. He nodded, tears in his eyes. And I'll be by your side, every step. As winter loomed, Monique stood on the mansion's balcony, the city sprawling below. Jack's proposal came quietly, a ring glinting in his hand as he knelt. Marry me, Monique. Let's do this life together. Her yes was a whisper, a vow sealed with a kiss under the stars. The foundation thrived. Vaughn's crimes faded into infamy, and Monique, once invisible, was now a beacon. She'd reclaimed her name, her family, and her purpose. Amara's fight lived on, and Monique was its heart, ready for whatever came next. The Whitmore mansion glowed under a canopy of stars, its sprawling lawns transformed into a vision of elegance for the wedding of the year. Fairy lights twinkled in the summer night, weaving through rose-laden arches, while a string quartet played softly, their notes drifting over the hundreds of guests in tailored suits and flowing gowns. Monique Johnson stood in a private suite, her reflection in a floor-length mirror almost unrecognizable. The white lace gown hugged her frame, its train shimmering with delicate beadwork, a gift from Preston, her father, who'd spared no expense. At 26, she was no longer the invisible cleaner who'd first stepped into this world. She was a daughter, a leader, a bride. Tonight she'd marry Jack Carter, the man who'd stood by her through every storm, and the weight of that joy mingled with the ache of all she'd overcome. A year had passed since Elliot Vaughn's arrest, his crimes laid bare at the gala that changed everything. The Amara Foundation, born from his confiscated fortune, had grown into a beacon of hope, its shelters and programs rescuing over 100 children from the shadows of his adoption ring. Monique, now its director, had become a national figure, her story of survival and justice inspiring millions. Yet, as she adjusted her veil, her thoughts drifted to her mother, Amara, whose journals and love had guided her. You'd be here, Mom, she whispered, touching the locket at her throat, a keepsake holding Amara's photo. You'd love this. A knock broke her reverie. Preston entered, his tuxedo impeccable, his gray eyes soft with pride. You're breathtaking, he said, his voice catching, like your mother on our wedding day. He offered his arm, a father's gesture that still felt new, precious. Their reunion had been hard-won, built on honesty and shared grief, and now as he led her to the ceremony, Monique felt the strength of their bond. Ready? He asked. She nodded, her smile radiant. More than ever. The garden path was lined with white petals, guests rising as Monique appeared. Jack waited at the altar, his broad shoulders steady, his hazel eyes locking onto hers with a love that anchored her. He'd proposed under the stars, his quiet vow sealing their future, and now as she approached, his grin was boyish, unguarded. Preston placed her hand in Jack's, his voice low. Take care of her. Jack nodded, his grip firm. Always. The officiant's words wove a spell, but it was their vows that stole the crowd's breath. Jack spoke first, his voice clear. Monique, you're my courage, my home. I promise to fight for you, laugh with you, and love you through every chapter. Tears pricked her eyes as she replied, Jack, you saw me when I was invisible. You're my partner, my heart. I promise to build our life with truth and love. They exchanged rings, the crowd erupting in applause as they kissed, a moment of pure, unshakable joy. The reception was a whirlwind, laughter, clinking glasses, and a dance floor alive with energy. Preston's speech, heartfelt and raw, drew tears. Monique, you've given me back my purpose, he said, raising a glass. To you, Jack, and the legacy of Amara. Lena Brooks, the retired PI who'd helped unravel Vaughn's lies, winked from her table, her gruff exterior softened by the night's magic. The children from the Foundation's shelters, dressed in their finest, giggled as they chased fireflies. Their futures brighter because of Monique's fight. As the night deepened, Monique and Jack slipped away to a quiet corner of the garden, the music a distant hum. He pulled her close, his hands warm against her waist. Mrs. Carter, he teased, you outdid yourself. She laughed, resting her head on his chest. We did this together. They stood in silence, the stars above mirroring the lights below. a moment of peace after a year of battles. Vaughn's shadow had faded. His trial ended with a 30-year sentence. Murder, fraud, trafficking, his name erased from Chicago's elite circles. The foundation had uncovered more of his network, leading to 47 arrests and the closure of 12 illegal agencies. Monique's work had drawn global attention, with invitations to speak at conferences and consult on policy. She declined most, focusing on the children, but her influence was undeniable, her mother's activism reborn in her. Preston had become more than a father. He was a partner in the foundation, funding new initiatives and sharing Amara's story to inspire change. They'd found Amara's sister, Aisha, who'd searched for Monique for years, believing her dead. Their reunion, tearful and healing, had given Monique a family she'd never known. Aisha, now a board member, had organized the publication of Amara's journals, a book titled Light in the Shadows, set to launch next month. "Your mom's words will save lives," Aisha told her, and Monique believed it. The mansion, once a place of secrets, was now home. Monique's suite held traces of her old life, her mother's locket, a photo of her and Jack at the diner, but it was also a canvas for her new one. She and Jack planned to move to a nearby house, a gift from Preston, where they'd start their family, rooted in love and truth. The foundation's latest report, delivered that morning, showed 89 families reunited, 156 scholarships awarded, and 5 new shelters opened, all funded by Vaughn's stolen wealth, turned to good. As the reception wound down, Monique visited the foundation's first shelter, a short drive away. A new plaque read, "Amara Johnson, Center for Hope." She laid a rose at its base, whispering, "We did it, Mom." The justice Amara sought had come, not through vengeance, but through Monique's relentless heart. Back at the mansion, she rejoined Jack, the party still alive with laughter. Preston caught her eye, his nod a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory. Later, alone with Jack under the night sky, Monique reflected on her journey. From a cleaner scrubbing floors to a woman reshaping lives, she'd rewritten her story. Vaughn had tried to erase her, but she'd emerged stronger, her mother's fire burning in her veins. "What's next, hero?" Jack asked, his arm around her. She smiled, the city's pulse hers. "Everything." Her legacy, like Amara's, was just beginning, a light for those still lost, a testament to a daughter who'd turned pain into power. What an incredible journey Monique's story has been, from a hidden past to a triumphant legacy. We hope her courage and resilience have touched your heart. Share your thoughts in the comments. What moved you most about Monique's fight for justice? Where are you tuning in from? Your reflections mean the world to us. Thank you for joining us on this emotional ride, and we can't wait to bring you more stories that inspire and uplift. Until next time, keep shining your light.